They laughed when I walked in, but I left them speechless. 3 years of biting my tongue, and it all came crashing down in one glorious moment. It was a humid September evening when my father-in-law, Admiral James Carver, slid a crisp invitation across the dinner table, his smirk sharper than the steak knife in my husband Daniel's hand. "Civilian observer," he said, voice dripping with condescension. "Time you saw what real operations look like, Emily." My daughters were upstairs, lost in their books, oblivious to the trap their grandfather had set. For 3 years, I'd let him paint me as a small-time pilot, ferrying tourists over the Chesapeake. He had no idea who I was, or what I'd been waiting for. If you've ever been underestimated despite your worth, hit that subscribe button. It's free and helps stories like mine reach those who need them. Now, let's dive into the reckoning. The invitation gleamed under the dining room light, Naval Station Norfolk's seal taunting me. Daniel's fork paused mid-bite, his hazel eyes flicking to mine, sensing the ambush, but not its depth. He thought his father was just being his usual overbearing self, not that I'd been preparing for this exact moment since James first dismissed me as a hobbyist, pilot unfit for the Carver legacy. "Sounds educational, Dad," Daniel said, his tone diplomatic, honed from years of dodging his father's barbs. His hand squeezed mine under the table, an apology for the humiliation he assumed was coming. He didn't know I held the winning hand. James leaned back, his silver hair catching the light, his posture screaming retired admiral even in a polo shirt. At 64, he radiated authority, his blue eyes cold with judgment. For 3 years, he'd belittled my career, reducing my medical evacuation company, Skyward Rescue, to joyrides for tourists. He'd spread that lie at the officers' club, and I'd let him, because the truth, that we held covert contracts with 2 federal agencies, would have shattered his
fragile ego.
My partner, Rachel, a former Marine who'd lost an arm in Fallujah, had built a fake paper trail to keep him clueless. We'd played his game, but tonight, the rules were about to change. "I'll be there," I said, my voice soft, deferential, the mask I'd worn to protect Daniel's career. James nodded, satisfied, thinking he'd cornered me. After dinner, as Daniel cleared plates and James watched his war documentaries, I stared at my reflection in the kitchen window. The woman looking back had learned to shrink, khakis instead of flight suits, PDA meetings instead of mission briefs. But Captain Emily Harper, call sign Spectre, still lived inside me. The pilot who'd flown into a hailstorm of gunfire in Kandahar, earning a Silver Star for saving 12 soldiers, including James's cousin, Colonel Michael Carver. James never suspected his son's wife was the legend he'd praised in a classified report. In my study, while Daniel read bedtime stories to our girls, I unlocked a drawer. Inside was a file I'd curated for years, declassified mission logs, my service record, and a commendation letter from James himself, lauding Captain E. Harper for valor in Operation Dust Devil. He'd never connected the dots. The next morning, I pressed Daniel's uniform with precision, packed Ava's PB&J and Lily's veggie wrap, and wrote notes promising courage and kindness. They'd never know their mom had dodged missiles to save lives. At Norfolk, I parked near Rachel's truck, her prosthetic arm glinting as she waved. "He's been bragging about this all week," she whispered, confirming James's plan to humiliate me. "Show him who you are." At the security desk, a young ensign puzzled over my civilian pass, muttering about my relation to the admiral. "Professional capacity," I insisted, clipping the badge to my blazer. The briefing room hummed with 38 officers, their dress white's a stark contrast to my civilian attire. Whispers followed me. James's tourist pilot daughter-in-law, here for a lesson in real service. I took a seat in the 4th row, visible but not bold, as they swapped stories of deployments, oblivious that I'd outflown most of them. At 0900 sharp, James strode in, his presence silencing the room. His slides droned on mission stats, rotor maintenance, extraction protocols, until he paused, his gaze locking onto me like a missile. "Let's welcome my daughter-in-law, Emily," he said, his tone syrupy with mockery. "She flies little tourist trips. Tell us, Emily, do you have a call sign?" Something cute like sunshine. The room roared with laughter, officers elbowing each other, relieved to not be the target. I counted 5 seconds, letting their amusement peak, then stood, shoulders squared, the pilot who'd faced death without flinching. "It's Spectre," I said, my voice slicing through their laughter like a blade. The room froze. Spectre was a legend. Operation Dust Devil, the pilot who'd saved 12 men in a helicopter half destroyed by enemy fire. Lieutenant Hayes dropped his pen. "Commander Ruiz Cove, stand." James's smirk faltered, confusion creeping in. June 2017, Kandahar. I continued, calm but unyielding. I flew into a kill zone, RPGs shredding my bird. My co-pilot was bleeding out, and I held her steady through 23 hits to the fuselage. Colonel Michael Carver was one of the 12 I pulled out, his leg nearly severed. "You wrote my commendation, Admiral," praising Captain E. Harper's unmatched courage. James gripped the podium, his face ashen. Officers whispered, phones out, searching for Dust Devil's declassified reports. I held up my phone, showing the commendation letter. "You also ignored 4 abort orders that night, prioritizing your mission timeline over our lives. Michael told me before he died, he couldn't forgive you for gambling with his team." The room erupted. Lieutenant Kim, one of 3 women present, recorded silently, her eyes blazing. "Commander Ruiz stood. I was there. She saved me, too. You buried the report, too. Protect your promotion." More stood, sharing stories of James's reckless orders. Operation Iron Tide, 5 dead. Operation Black Wave, 2 lost. His career unraveled as they spoke. My phone buzzed, Rachel's text. Files sent to Reuters. "It's going viral." James's phone lit up with Pentagon calls. He tore off his ribbons, dropping them like confessions, and whispered, "You are the hero I claimed to be." He left, a broken man, as officers applauded. Not for me, but for truth. 6 months later, James retired, teaching ethics at Annapolis, his failures a mandatory lesson. My girls learned my story when Ava found a CNN article, her eyes wide. "Mom, you?" I nodded, explaining why I'd hidden my light, to protect them, until silence became betrayal. Daniel, who'd secretly documented James's threats, held me close. "I always knew you were Spectre." Skyward Rescue grew, hiring pilots inspired by my stand. Respect wasn't given, it was claimed. My favorite moment? When Ruiz confirmed my save. What's yours? Comment 1 below and share.